Whoa, what's going on, guys? So I'm going to get to the raw milk stuff in a second, but this video is sponsored by All Black Everything and cows. All Black Everything because I was up for 22 hours yesterday and I'm exhausted. So we're going to listen to the crack. Ooh, there we go, baby. Batty Berry, cheers, my friends. Also, they're my regular supplement sponsor, so they kind of sponsor everything I do. So thank you, guys. Cheers. And now, why you guys clicked on the video in the first place is raw milk, right? I'm going to put this down because I talk with my hands, and if I'm driving, I only have one to talk with. Now, why I drink raw milk as an athlete, but more importantly, we're going to go into, is it safe? Should you do it to begin with? And are you crazy, right? So let's start with pasteurization, right? Because that's what regular milk is in the store. So what is pasteurization? Pasteurization, essentially, what is this guy doing? 30 miles an hour with no emergency blinkers on. Guess his brain's the only thing that's broken in that car. But, excuse me, pasteurization is essentially heating something up to a temperature where it doesn't, like, cook it in a way or boil it or anything like that. But it's supposed to heat up and kill any bad bacterias, viruses, things like that. Really more bacterias, right? Now, the issue with pasteurization, in most things, it's okay. It doesn't matter. But when something's very healthy for you and has a lot of vitamins and minerals, more importantly, micronutrients of those vitamins and minerals, pasteurization becomes a bit of a problem. Because micronutrients do not handle heat well at all. So what ends up happening is you're taking this superfood of raw milk, right? Unbelievable superfood, has one of the best amino acid profiles on the planet, incredible fats, a ton of B vitamins, iron, creatine, everything you could possibly think of. All that good stuff. You're cooking away about 95% of it through a pasteurization process. Because ultimately what happens is after you cook away a lot of those vitamins and minerals, you know, you're kind of just left with the heartier macronutrients, which is, you know, carbohydrates, protein, fats, and lactose, which is milk sugar. Now, a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but most people are lactose intolerant. You know, you become lactose intolerant because two reasons. When you're a baby and you're supposed to be drinking milk, right? Because that's correct. When you're a baby, you should be drinking milk. You should be drinking your mother's milk, breastfeeding, blah, blah, blah. So on and so forth. Your digestive enzymes in your stomach produce their own lactase. Lactase. Now, lactase helps break down lactose very efficiently. It's why babies have it, so that they can digest mother's milk properly. Now, as we get older, you know, the human body is very adept to the use it or lose it sort of situation. Where when you're a kid and you're drinking milk every day, you're good. But if you go a couple of years without drinking any milk, or even maybe a year, whatever it is, you'll find yourself in a spot where when you try to have more milk again, your body's saying, hey, why are we going to continue producing this lactase enzyme? Because it hasn't seen any lactose in a while. So I'm emphasizing the differences, because lactose, lactase, and something called lactate, which is a product we'll go into in a minute. So when the body doesn't see any lactose for a long time, it says, why are we going to continue to make lactase to break down this thing that we clearly don't see anymore? I guess we're not breastfeeding anymore. Now, when the human body sees cow's milk, as a child too, it still sees the lactose. So it still thinks, oh cool, breast milk, we're good. Let's keep the lactase production flowing and continue from there. We see lactose intolerance way more in today's day and age because back in the day, cow's milk was essentially cow's milk and goat's milk were necessities for thriving civilizations because it gave us nutrient-rich caloric density in a moment's notice. Where it's the same thing as agriculture, right? Lactase in cow's milk was the original agriculture. Then we made farms and then factories and blah 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 that could sustain higher populations in a more dense area, like denser populations in a smaller area is what I meant to say. But the first step of all that was cattle, was farm animals like that, where we could drink their milk because we finally had reliable and accessible nutrient-rich food. Because cow's milk, it's not a beverage, it's food. You know what I mean? If something has that many calories, it's food. Coca-Cola is not a drink, it's food. You know what I mean? It's all sugar and it's not good for you, but it's food. I can't emphasize that enough. Now, that being said, the people back in the day were never lactose intolerant. Maybe one or two. But I'll tell you what, if you got sick every time you drank the most nutrient-rich thing your civilization had accessible, you probably didn't breed. You probably just got sick and got meddled out of natural selection. So, because dairy consumption was always a consistent thing back in the day, right? Excuse me, I had something in my throat. It's driving me nuts. Because dairy consumption was so consistent back in the day, nobody really ever had the opportunity to become lactose intolerant because the body always saw lactose coming in. And if lactose was always there, it said, okay, I guess we need to keep producing lactase to break down that lactose. Makes sense, right? So now you look at what raw milk does and the criticism it gets. I'm a big believer in the healthier something is for you, the more they want it shut away and pushed away from us. So they rely on whatever they have. To the point where they've spent more money shutting down like dairy farmers trying to sell raw milk than they've put efforts into crime and meth labs. Crazy stuff. You'd think one was significantly worse than the other and maybe you can leave the raw milk alone for a little bit. But I'm not a politician. What do I know? I guess. Maybe I should be. But I'd probably solve all the problems too quickly. And I don't want that. Send me there for 15 minutes. I'll write a bill, it'll be all done. But all that being said, though, is why do they criticize raw milk more than they criticize, let's say, the dangers of drugs and crime and robbery and stabbings and all that jazz? It's because you can't go after the raw milk dairy farmers selling it by, the glass bottle and tax them like crazy. Or the biggest thing for me is, they want you to be fat and unhealthy and weak and sick all the time where you rely on them. The more you rely on the government, I'm not going into some crazy conspiracy theories, but the more you rely on the government or the more you rely on your parents, right? It's the same thing. The easier you are to control. If you live under your parents' roof and they say be home by 9, you better be home by 9. You know what I mean? Or you're getting a mouthful. You don't listen to the government and they say do this or you're going to jail. You're probably going to do what they say. So, there's a lot of things that they allow people to do and people to sell that lower your testosterone levels, because the higher your testosterone is, the harder you are to control. If you're somebody who's going to do their own research and think for themselves, act for themselves, work hard, they don't want a lot of that going around. They want you to be complacent, a cog in the machine, do what they say until they can retire you with not enough money to live, and then you die. That's all that makes them happy. But back to milk, all right? So I wasn't going to go on a rant, and I could go on a rant all day as an entrepreneur, you know what I mean? There's a reason I like to work for myself and be my own boss. But back to raw milk. We're going to keep it on topic, right? We're not going to let John rant off too much. Too much. So we ask ourselves, why take the risk of raw milk health-wise, right? Versus pasteurized. Are the micronutrients you're missing that much more severe and important that you just can't take a supplement for it and be safe with the milk, right? Well, there's two things with that, two problems. First of all, let's go into the micronutrients you are missing, right? If you had to take them in supplement form, they got powderized. Now you're talking about putting more processed chemicals in your body that your liver has to synthesize and use. And not just that, a lot of these minerals are very, very finite on a molecular level, right? On a molecular side. Meaning that when you put them in stomach acid, it really doesn't respond well, and they kind of just die. Because if pasteurization killed them, you know what else kills them? 98.6 degrees of human body heat and an incredibly acidic environment in your stomach. So that kills them too. So it's kind of like taking empty pill capsules sometimes. So when you take a lot of supplements, most of it's nonsense, because your body can't actually use it because it got destroyed in stomach acid, and not all of them, but most of them, before they could ever even be absorbed. Now let's look at the raw milk side of it, right? When micronutrients are backed up with calories, and they come from food, the liver doesn't have to do it. It just gets absorbed through the alveoli in the intestine, the little phalange-like molecules lining the intestinal walls. So instead of being absorbed to be chemicals, and your body's saying, hey, what's this? Synthesize it for us. The body's going, oh, cool, we got amino acids, we got zinc, we got iron, we got this, because it knows what it is coming from a food source. It'll then absorb it and utilize it properly. While, since it's in the food, the stomach acid won't be able to eat this finite powderized molecule. It'll just do what it's supposed to do with the food and digest it, and then you metabolize and so on and so forth. The other good reason is why the raw instead of the whole milk, the regular milk, is once again that lactase. Because just like every person is different, if I cut off your finger and say, check the DNA of it, I don't know why I said cut it off, but if I cut off, let's say fuck it, I cut off your finger, right? And check the DNA molecules of it. It's going to be very similar to the person next to you, but not identical. Not identical. That being said, milk is exactly the same way. Every cow they're still cows, but every milk is a little bit different. So the lactase that cow produces specifically hones in better to that lactose in that raw milk. Does that make sense? Because the difference with raw milk versus whole milk is, regular milk, you call it whole milk because it is, but you know what I mean. In that pasteurization process, the natural lactase that raw milk has to break down the lactose within itself gets eaten up during pasteurization. So then you have some products and companies, like one called Lactaid, where Lactaid is essentially selling you lactase enzymes to help break down lactose in food. If you want to go back and listen to that again, I would, because it makes sense. It's just a lot of lack words. Lactaid is selling lactase to help break down lactose. But the only problem is the lactate isn't selling specific lactase for the specific lactose you're consuming. And when you're buying non-pasteurized milk, when you're buying pasteurized milk, you know, that could have came from 10 different cows, and they just put it in one big vat and mix it together and sell it to you. You know, who knows? But when you get the raw milk, it came from Bessie the cow, right there. She's over there looking cute. The lactase in that milk is specifically made to break down that lactose in particular so that you can digest it efficiently. Now, people say, but what about the health risks of the raw milk and the bacteria? A lot of the bacteria that's in raw milk is actually pretty prebiotic. It's really good for your gut health. People are worried about the stuff like bad bacteria, you know, which our stomach acid takes care of, and what it doesn't, the immune system does. But aside that, you know, a healthy human body can maintain itself incredibly efficiently. And, you know, not to point fingers or anything, but if you're somebody watching this video saying, should I start drinking raw milk? You're probably not at McDonald's every day. You're probably not eating Taco Bell and nonsense and stuffing your face with Cheetos and garbage. You know, you probably work out and take care of yourself, and you just want to live a cleaner, less chemical-induced life, which is a beautiful thing, and I'm all for it. That's how I live, you know what I mean? So our bodies are more than efficient enough in taking care of themselves. To the point there's people getting sick from raw milk, there's like less than a 0.1% chance of it even happening, and that's like a genuine statistic. You know, if you look on a government site and like, oh, you're got a 100% chance you're gonna get sick, but if you look at the real data, it doesn't happen. Because a healthy body takes care of itself. A healthy body is incredibly good at keeping itself alive and healthy and running efficiently. So, as an athlete, when do I drink raw milk? For me, God, I wish I could get like a cow to sponsor me. I know I said a cow sponsors me in the beginning of the video, but that was a fib. It was a fib. Cows don't actually sponsor me. That's a shame. Bodybuilders use a certain supplement that shuttles nutrients into the system. It essentially acts like another supplement called alpha-lipoic acid, which essentially is a store brand version of the same thing. And it actually, alpha-lipoic acid works really, really well if you want to try something like that. Where it essentially takes nutrients and shuttles them into your cells really efficiently. So for me, I take some of that right after my workout, so that when my body's yearning for food, yearning for calories and nutrients and so on and so forth, not only am I giving it to it at that time, but I'm giving it an even better ability to absorb while taking those nutrients when my body's yearning for it. Make sense? Now, we're here. But now, somebody's stupid car alarm's going off too. Take when my body's yearning for it, and I'm giving it an extra way to shuttle it in there. So I'm trying to get somewhere, and I have a fast car, and I want to put a lot of stuff in that car, right? It's a fast truck now. What am I going to do? I'm going to take even more nutrient-rich food, the raw milk, and shuttle all those micronutrients that are incredibly anabolic, incredibly healthy, incredibly good for your body, period, and shuttle them into the muscle at the time of day where my body's yearning for calories, it wants to absorb, and I'm giving it all the tools it can and use to absorb. You know, at the Olympics, we just saw recently that, God, freaking car alarms drive me nuts. Oh well. But at the Olympics, the last little thing, all right? They tried pushing the, that alarm is driving me nuts. They tried pushing the plant-based food on these athletes. Not one of these athletes lives plant-based, and they're going to the Olympics. At all. If you're an Olympic athlete, you're not eating plant-based stuff. In fact, They ran out of real food in like the third day, when they still had a lot of days left at the Olympics, to where they're trying to bring more in. They had athletes sneaking out of the village to go get like a proper steak and like proper food because they knew they couldn't perform without it. A lot of the athletes were seen showing up with glass jars of raw milk. And one last little cool thing is, if you find yourself a raw milk provider, the way to know if they're good or not, and I don't mean if the quality of the product is good or, well, yeah, the quality, but the people, I guess, in a way, is you need to make sure they're not stealing the cream and then selling you the milk. Because so many of those nutrients are in the cream. So when you get a big glass bottle of raw milk, right, and you see the cream sitting there and then the milk on the bottom, because fat floats, so the cream is all right there. That's where a lot of those nutrients are, but you want that cream. If it's not a milk that you have to shake up aggressively to get that cream to go throughout, to drink it properly, then it's not good. Not that it went bad or anything, but you're missing all those vitamins and minerals. You're missing a lot of those nutrients that could be present. So when you find a provider for the raw milk, make sure that that separation is there and that you have to shake it up. And they'll tell you too, if it's your first time there, like, oh, make sure you shake it because the cream separates and you gotta shake it up basically to mix it. Otherwise, they separate it themselves and they sell the cream, which makes sense. You're running a business, I get it. But usually, you know, an old Irish farmer, and I say that because that's who I met, it was an old Irish lady with the chicken with a farm way out east. You know, they're usually pretty good people, but just be aware of it. You know, you want that cream, you want to have to shake it up, and you know what? On that note, my friends, hope I shed some light on the information. Hope I gave you an opportunity and a willingness to try new things and think for yourself. My body feels good on it. I'm excited to see how it continues to feel. And, well, I mean, it's all going to be good. It's all going to be good. But I'm curious to see about the anabolic response to it. So on that note, I'm going to go inside, get this cardio done. Hope you guys have a great day. Hope you have a better day than the weather, because it's a little rainy and gross outside. And I'll see you tomorrow. Let's get it, baby.